Hi, this is Trisha from Lemon Paper Lab. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use one of my pattern starter templates for Photoshop. Templates are a helpful tool when creating patterns in Photoshop. The template we will be looking at today is template E. This is designed with a 1:1 ratio, and we are using a canvas size of 7200 pixels by 7200 pixels. This template will be available to download in my Patreon page. I also have this template and more in my Ultimate Pattern Maker Toolkit for Photoshop, which includes all of my Photoshop templates and actions to help improve your workflow when designing in Photoshop. And I will leave a link in the description below to both my Patreon page and this toolkit. Currently, I have the template open here in Photoshop, and what you'll notice here is we have two smart objects. We have our object 1, we have our object 2, and then we also have a color 1, color 2, we have our folder, our template layer with the various repeats here, and then we have an optional background color here. This object 1 is what defines this shape here. Currently we have it set as a partial circle shape here. And then our object 2 here is currently we see it as a flower. This is the shape on top. So let's go ahead and edit this object 2. So I'm going to go ahead and double click into this smart object. Here in the layers panel, we see our flower image here, and this is just one of the default shapes that comes with Photoshop. And then we have a couple reference layers here. We have a solid version of our circle, and then we have just some outline versions here as well. So let's just go ahead and turn off this flower layer here. Let's bring up this reference layer here, and then let's use the brush tool. So I'm going to click on the brush tool here, and then I'm just going to get back to my default color D on the keyboard to get black as my foreground color. And then I'm just going to start drawing a shape. So we'll just follow that basic path, creating a line here. And then I'm just going to add another line here. And then we'll draw a line here. And then we'll add one here as well. So we just have a basic design here. It's just kind of a rough organic shape here. So let's turn off the visibility of that reference layer and let's see how it looks in our template. So I'm going to go ahead and save this smart object. So I'm going to go Command or Control S to save it. And then we'll jump back into our template here. And then we can see that it is already repeating it. So based on this, I would reduce the size of it. So I'm going to jump back in here. We have our layer here. I'm going to have my remove tool, and then I'm going to hit Shift and Option, and then that will just allow me to scale it down in place here. We'll try that. We'll accept those changes and we'll save it again, Command or Control S. And then we'll check out our document here, and it looks better at the smaller scale. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here in Command or Control with the minus key, and then let's go ahead and turn on our pattern preview mode. So we got our view, pattern preview, so we can see how it repeats in real time here. To save this pattern, you want to make sure your patterns panel is open. If you don't see your patterns panel, go ahead and go to Window, selecting patterns here. And then you'll notice at the bottom is a plus icon, and that will allow us to save it. You could always give your pattern a name, clicking on OK. And then we can see our newly created pattern here. Let's go ahead and open a new document so we can play with it here. So I'm going to go to File, New. I'm going to do the same dimensions of my current document. So we'll go 7200 pixels by 7200 pixels, bring up my resolution to 300 pixels per inch here, and then clicking on Create. And then I'll just click and we can see our pattern here. To achieve the pattern effect, it had to be created with black and white layers, and so it's not really easy to change the colors of our pattern unless we do it within our document. So also included with this template is an action. So let's go ahead and load that into Photoshop here. So to load an action, you'll want to bring up your actions panel, go to Windows, select actions here. I've got my action panel open, and then I'm going to click on this menu icon, and then you'll click on load action. You'll want to navigate to your files, and then you're looking for this .atn file here, and that is the file extension for Photoshop when it comes to actions. So you'll just click on it, click on open. So I currently have my little action set here open, and we have this action white to transparent. So we'll go ahead and play that action here. And so what you'll notice here is it got rid of the white pixels, and so now we just have a black with transparent pixels here. And one thing with this action, so if I bring up this pattern layer again here, we'll unclip that here, is we had our white in this section. In this case, it is now black. Sometimes it will flip the colors, and that's okay because we're just looking for it to be black with transparency. But I just wanted to point that out, that sometimes with this action, depending on what the pattern is you might see that it flips the reverse, but that's okay. We're just looking to get that black with transparent pixels. And then what this action does is it automatically will save you a swatch here as well with that transparent pixels. So we'll turn off the visibility here. Let's look at our new pattern here, and then let's create some solid color adjustment layers. We'll keep this black for the moment, and then I'm going to create a clipping mask, right click, create clipping mask here, and then let's do one more solid color adjustment layer. Let's just go white for the moment, FFF, and then that is our background layer. So we can always play with the color. You can change it out, try a blue, and just can easily change the color and of your patterns here if we want to see it at a smaller scale, just to see how it looks as it repeats. We can change the scale here as well to see our pattern. So we've created one of our patterns here. Let's go ahead and try it again with our template. So I'm going to jump back into this object one. I'm going to turn off our layer here. Let's try our diamond reference layer instead. Bring up a new layer here, and this time I'm going to use the pen tool. If you right click here, we see our pen tool keyboard shortcut is P. And then I'm just going to use these guide references, and I'm just going to create a diamond shape here, finishing it out there. And with this stroke layer, I'm going to click on the options under align. I'm going to align it to the center here. And then I'm just going to hit enter just to finish out my shape here. We'll grab this move tool here, and then I'm going to hit shift and option just to bring it a little bit smaller here. Clicking on OK, and then let's duplicate this layer, Command or Control J. We can do the same thing, shift option, and then I'm just going to make it smaller here. Clicking enter to save those changes, and then I'm just going to make this a little bit off here, and then let's duplicate it again, Command or Control J, and then I'm going to reduce the size again, shift option, just to bring it smaller here, and then we'll bring it down here. Okay, so let's turn off that reference layer just so we can see our shape here. And then let's go ahead and save this smart object, Command or Control S to save it. And then we'll jump into our template and to see how it looks here. And what we see is that we do need, now that we are using a diamond shape, we do need to adjust this smart object here as well. So we'll double click in now that we are no longer using this shape here. And then we'll bring up our diamond here. So these first two layers here, what you'll notice is they extend all the way to the edge. For these ones here is they do not extend to the edge here. And then so let's start with the one that extends to the edge. Let's save this Smart Object, Command or Control S to save it, and then we'll jump into our template here. And now we can see our pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and save this pattern. Give it a name if you want. And then we'll jump into our document here. I'm going to make this a group. Shift click here, Command or Control G just to group it here. We'll turn off the visibility there, and then we'll just select our pattern here again. We'll go ahead and use that action, white to transparent. We'll click on play so we can save our pattern here. So we can delete that layer, and then we turn on our group here, checking out our pattern. Let's make this one a little bit bigger just so we can see it. And then here you can play with colors again. On this, if we set this color here to white, you can always double click in to select your colors here. If we select it to white and then change the opacity down to 50%, we can get that two-tone effect. So if we change the color here, it will also change that secondary color as well. So this is a fun color here. So that's one way you can get creative with the diamond shape with this template. And then if we jump into the template here, we do have this background layer. So let's see how that works with our template here. So if we are in our object, so if we jump back into our top object here, let's turn this one back on. We'll turn off the visibility of this layers here. So we'll save this one here, Command or Control S. And then we'll jump into our other smart object here. In this case, we'll use this shape where we have the extra space here on the outside. So I'm going to save this, Command or Control S. We'll jump back into our template here to see how that looks. Okay, and so now we can turn on our background color here. In this case, our color one and our background color are the same, but if you wanted to introduce a third color here, say we pick a blue, we'll save this color, jump back into our template, and now we have that extra outline effect here. So you could always play with your, in this case, the black and blue color if you want to change it here. You could always save your pattern like this, but if you wanted to save it to where you can edit it down the road, what I would do is I would turn off this background layer. Let's go ahead and bring this color back to white. So we'll save that, and we'll close that. And then we can just define this pattern here. So we'll go ahead and save this pattern. We jump back into this document here, we'll turn off that group layer, we'll bring up our pattern. So now we have our pattern here, and now I want to isolate the black from the white. Because we've introduced this additional aspect to the pattern, our white to transparent action will no longer work in this case. So we're going, but to do it, we are going to right click, and I'm going to rasterize this layer. And then I'm going to use the magic wand tool. You want to make sure contiguous is not selected. And then I'm going to select on the white area here. And then I'm going to hit M on the keyboard to get my marquee tool, which when I right click, it allows me to pick this option, layer by cut. And so now we have our black area isolated, and then we also have our white area isolated here. And typically when I save my patterns, I like my patterns to be saved as black. So I'm going to click on this lock transparent pixels, and then I'm going to fill this with black. So I'm going to hit Option Delete for Mac users. That would be Alt backspace for PC. And we're just going to fill it with our foreground color here, which is black. So if we toggle between the two, we've got one version, we've got the other version here as well. So let's go ahead and save those. So we'll click on this layer, we'll hit that plus icon to save it. We'll do that same thing for this one. We'll hit that plus icon to save it. Okay. So now we have our 2 layers here. So we can delete those layers, and then we'll bring up our actual pattern layers here. Okay. And then let's add a solid color adjustment layer. Let's just pick a random color here. And then we'll right click to get that create clipping mask here. And then we can also duplicate this, Command or Control J. We'll bring it down here. Let's select another random color, and then we will right click to hit our create clipping mask. And that's not a very good color, so let's try, we'll change this one here. There we go. To another color here, and then we can just duplicate this, Command or Control J. We'll make this one white FFF. Bring it to the back, and now we have our background layer here, and you can play with what color you want this one to be as well. So this is just another option that you can do with this template, is you can also create it where you have this space in between your pattern. So I hope you enjoy using this template. Templates are a great way to start your pattern making process. It gives you a framework as you create your pattern. Based on an already defined pattern template, you can create your own fun, unique variations of this pattern. This template will be available to download in my Patreon page. I also have this template and more in my Ultimate Pattern Maker Toolkit for Photoshop, which includes all of my Photoshop templates and actions to help improve your workflow when designing in Photoshop. And I will leave a link in the description below to both my Patreon page and this toolkit. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below. This is Trisha from Lemon Paper Lab. See you next time.